In Maury's view, paraphrasing the work of the philosopher A.N. Whitehead was no more or less difficult than any other theory, thinking in particular of Lacan, although he was trying at the same time to visualize it. To visualize theory, he thought, to write it as a form of drawing while not transposing it in any way, then to elicit his own understanding, and foreground this through delineating it as bubbles of text, or by underlining and indicating with gestural marks. On this occasion, Maury found himself working from a few pages of Whitehead's Adventures of Ideas, 1933, found himself, as if it were a process outside of his control, in someone else's, perhaps, who deflects his own uncertainties onto Maury, who can then, paradoxically, reveal them as uncertain. Who that person is not that difficult for the reader-listener to deduce. The key, however, to Maury's visualization, was Whitehead's idea of, to quote, the insertion of future in the crannies of the present. He imagined as blips in left to right proceeding left between each cranny represented in his diagram, each occasion of insertion of the future into the present. Consciousness, it seemed to Maury, and assumed that it was what Whitehead was defining, was a continuum of experience, some of the latter more momentous than others. The other theory that his diagram jarred with was how one might visualize Lacan's pulsing of the unconscious into language. This would be a near relation to consider later, the overlapping of the two diagrams, therefore, both theories. So the future, Maury added, would come into the crannies of the present that is otherwise there already, before experience, coming in the form of, to quote Whitehead again, entities, or rather, as promoted by the pre-existence of entities. Whitehead had suggested that they were like, quote, the words individual and atom, composite things with an absolute reality, unquote. When they intermingle with one's consciousness and constitute experience, they become, quote, actual entities, an actual entity in its immediacy of self-attainment when it stands out for itself alone, with its own effective self-enjoyment, unquote. Where Maury tried to visualize these entities, he imagined that the grain of the paper, heightened by smudged black chalk, might represent their infinite multitude hovering in one's midst, waiting to activate as the future coming in. In his drawing, he mused, he had something reminiscent of the outstretched wings of a dragonfly concerning time, some interpretation of Maury's own. According to Whitehead, quote, the process creates itself. The entities natural geological relativity are there already, waiting in isolated contexts. Therefore, chalk as text, and pencil are each subgroups of handwriting, while each of the remaining contexts are themselves groups, in their spread across the drawing plane. Physical paper in Phase 2 is different from that in Phase 1, in that Maury has taken the drawings found in layer to be a prerequisite of the task, and to be outside of the context schema. The phenomenon which links this archaeological interest to the drawing to which Maury has applied it is time. Coincidentally, a key quote from Whitehead's text, as mentioned already, is still the insertion of future in the crannies of the present, from his discussion of both the past and future being implicated in any present as was Maury's intention at the outset. This idea is to bring Lacan's reflections on into subjective time, from his 1945 paper, Logical Time, into the mix.